The question is that this House has considered the government's strategic priorities for Ofwat. Daisy Cooper.
The Deputy Speaker, and may I start by offering my congratulations and thanks to the Honourable Member for Ludlow for all of his campaigning on this issue. I've been pleased to support a number of his initiatives in this place. That said, I do think it is extraordinary that we are still having to have this debate. It is extraordinary that we are having to talk about measures to prevent and reduce the discharge of raw, untreated sewage into our rivers, into our lakes, into our chalk streams and onto our beaches. It is just so obviously wrong, and it is extraordinary that we are still having to talk about it. Let me start with a stark contrast. England's water company bosses have awarded themselves almost £27 million in bonuses over the past 2 years, despite pumping out raw sewage into waterways 1,000 times a day. This too, I believe, is obviously wrong. Liberal Democrats have demanded a sewage bonus ban, to ban future bonuses until sewage dumps stop. We want to stop water company executives from being paid a penny in bonuses until waterways are protected from these outrageous sewage dumps. And I do think these bosses should also be made to hand back the millions of pounds that they have already received in bonuses until they can clean up this mess. And this is the scale of the problem that we're dealing with. In 2020, water companies discharged raw sewage into waterways 400,000 times, amounting to more than 3 million hours of discharge. The longest discharges lasted more than 8,000 hours. Now, just 14% of the UK's waterways are in a good ecological condition, and more than half of England's rivers fail to pass the cleanliness tests. We have a duty to protect our natural environment, Mr Deputy Speaker, but I believe that water companies, Ofwat, and I'm afraid also the government, have failed to hold water companies accountable for dumping sewage into waterways. New analysis of Environment Agency data has revealed some shocking statistics. In the southwest, South West Water has dumped sewage into local rivers for a staggering 19,095 hours just last year. Across the region, South West Water also released sewage into rivers and beachfronts 43,484 times and for more than 350,000 hours. The data reveals that this includes raw sewage being discharged for more than 3,700 hours into the River Otter, for more than 1,800 hours into the River Exe, and for more than 1,400 hours into the River Axe. And it is not much better in the east of England, in Hertfordshire. St Albans, my constituency, is home to the River Ver. It is a rare and precious chalk stream. It should run clear. But last year, the volunteers of the Ver Valley Society and the River Wardens took photographs at the source of the river. In the photographs, you can see sewage. You can see sewage fungus. You can see plastic tampon applicators, all at the source of our beautiful River Ver. It's shocking that the data revealed by the Rivers Trust shows that the sewer storm overflow at Mark Yates wastewater treatment works operated by Thames Water discharged an untreated amount of raw sewage into the River Ver as many as 139 times for a total of 2,642 hours during 2021. Another wastewater treatment works at Harpenden, just up the road from St Albans, also run by Thames Water, recorded 13 spills for a total of 120 hours into the River Lee. So where on earth is Ofwat in all of this? I think Ofwat has now been called Ofwhere by some environmental charities. They're sitting on their hands. They're simply missing in action, and it has now fallen to an environmental group called Wild Justice to take Ofwat to court to try and encourage them to use the powers that they already have to regulate sewage discharge. It's been very disappointing to me that the government has not taken on more ideas from this side of the House. For example, during the passage of the Environment Bill this year, Liberal Democrats supported an amendment that would have made it harder for sewage dumps to happen and to ensure that DEFRA produced a storm overflow discharge reduction plan. It's disappointing that the government whipped against it. During the passage of the Animal Sentience Bill this year, Liberal Democrats tabled another amendment to name and shame the water companies found to dump sewage in rivers, which leads to animals being killed. And again, it's disappointing the government actively whipped against this. My honourable friend, the member for Westmoreland and Lonsdale, has introduced a sewage discharge bill to end the sewage scandal in rivers and protect animals. I urge the government to support this bill. As I said at the beginning, it is deeply disappointing that we are even having to have this debate. Our lakes, our beaches, our chalk streams, our rivers, they are utterly vital to our British ecosystems, and all of us must do everything to protect them. Despite discharges of untreated waste only being permitted in so-called exceptional circumstances, for example after extreme rainfall, we are seeing that these releases from water treatment companies are becoming routine. Water companies must work to minimise sewage discharges into our rivers and lakes. So there are a number of things that I would call on the Minister to consider. I would like to see the government set meaningful targets and deadlines for water companies to end sewage discharge. I'd like to see the government introduce a sewage tax on water company profits to fund the clean-up of our waterways. I'd like to see the government reduce the number of licences given to water companies that permit them to discharge sewage into our rivers. I'll give way.
Does she share my view that actually one of the things the government should closely consider is the idea of a national rivers recovery fund, so that fines that have been paid can be used to remedy all of the pollution that has created them? At the moment, small fines go back into redress for pollution, but large ones go to the Treasury. My former colleagues won't thank me for it, but there is a case for a wider national recovery fund for rivers.
I thank the honourable member for his intervention. I think that's an exceptional idea. I think it's a very good idea, and I certainly am open to any idea that effectively makes these water companies cough up for the mess and clean up the mess that they have made, and I'd happily have a conversation with him to see how we can advance such a suggestion. In addition, Mr Deputy Speaker, I would like to see the government add local environmental groups onto water company boards. You know, some of our river volunteers, certainly in St Albans, they are themselves the experts. They know these rivers inside out, and they should have a voice and have a role on the water company boards. I would like to see Ofwat using its existing powers to tackle the discharge of raw sewage, but I would also want to see Ofwat's powers strengthened. I'll just give 2 or 3 quick examples. I do think that the government could give Ofwat the power to force water companies to make repairs and investments to reduce sewage discharge. I think Ofwat could have the power to ban companies from giving bonuses to their executives until this mess has been cleaned up, and I think Ofwat should have the power to force companies to publish the number of sewage discharges more regularly than just once a year. Mr Deputy Speaker, I'm grateful that we have had this debate today. I will.
She may not be as familiar with the Environment Act as I am, but it's made very clear in the Environment Act that the monitoring devices that water companies are going to be obliged to install will make information on water quality available within 15 minutes in near real time.
Member for that contribution. I wasn't aware of that, and I'm grateful for him for informing me. I know that certainly in St Albans in the River Ver, a number of our river wardens have taken part in a citizen science project where they are regularly involved in testing the quality of the water, and so I'm sure that many of them will be keen to take part and observe that particular set of data. But finally, Mr Deputy Speaker, I am pleased that we've had this debate today, but I am shocked that we are still having to have it. Thank you very much.